Friends of Dice Never Lie. We are a Discord server and gaming group of online friends. My name is Jared. I am the Dungeon Master, often recognized or known as Marathustra, Marathusala. Got a lot of different names, but if you ever want to get in contact with me, please leave a comment down below. Otherwise, if you've got Discord, look up Marathustra number 5377 and say hello. If you're looking for a dungeon master, I want to invite you on over. We've got Westmarchs going on where you can schedule games at any given time, or you can join a campaign that is a little bit more like of a set time. A lot of my campaigns right now are at higher levels and they're a little bit further in, but definitely come by and check us out and see what we are offering at that point. I'm hoping to get a new Westmarchs off the ground for some Spelljammer. We've got a Westmarchs going on in Tolis, city on Primal. It's a world built by Monty Cook, and we've got some really cool things going on with some of the actual campaigns. A beginner-friendly little Tale of Two Dragons, as well as we've got Tomb of Annihilation and Rime of the Frost Maiden. But we're going to do a quick little breakdown for beginners. Make sure that people are not like lost at looking at a character sheet. This is the D&D Beyond version of a 5th edition character sheet. This is what you will see if you save your character to a PDF. We're going to have the basic breakdown. This is not an in-depth breakdown. We have our main stats. Physical stats are strength, dexterity, and constitution. Mental stats are intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. These 6 main stats define most of this game, and you will see that the stats are really small. The modifier is what matters here. That calculus isn't necessarily important right now, but just recognize that the modifier is modifying a die 20, a D20 roll, and you're going to apply the necessary modifier. So many things in the game are going to come down to either an ability check, a skill check, or an ability saving throw. And the differences of these will basically be your actual ability that is being called for, and the potential of if it has proficiency added to it. Proficiency is another thing that is simply just the background math of how the game functions. Knowing what your proficiency bonus is, okay. Knowing why it is doesn't really matter. But it can be extrapolated through most things if you don't know exactly where to look for it. But knowing where your proficiency bonus and knowing when it like goes up one can be big, but in the long run, proficiency is kind of in the background of a lot of things. So you've got like a constitution check is simply a d20 plus this 2. There are no constitution skills, but there are constitution saving throws. Skills are your interaction with the world around you, and again, they can have proficiency, which adds a further plus 2. Saving throws are the world interacting with you and your ability to kind of avoid that effect. That is a huge aspect of this game in those 3 little sections right there. This next section, the main thing to recognize here is your armor class. This is a dexterity-based ability, but your armor class is somebody's ability to hit you. They need to meet or exceed your armor class. So recognizing armor class, AC, is effectively to find out your target number. And this is very similar to an ability save DC. That is a spell's target number. And it's in the same way that if you are casting a spell, somebody is trying to avoid it, and your save DC is their target. And walking speed is very important, but most people have a 30-foot walking speed. There's only a few classes that modify it a little bit more. Hit points are huge. Just recognizing your ability to shrug off damage to you. The big thing to recognize is everything is going to take you to 0 hit points until you take damage in a way that takes you to your maximum hit points in the negative. So this character taking 1 to 10 hit points is not a big deal. That is going to hurt you, maybe take you unconscious. But the moment you are taking -1 or -9, that's all zeroed out. But -10 hit points is automatically dead. Hit dice are ability to heal yourself while you rest. Basically, it's free healing, and you're saving death saving throws. Not terribly important starting off for a new person, but recognizing death saving throws are essentially 55% chance of success, 45% chance of failure. You've got a lot of side proficiencies that are going to be listed here. These are all of the armor options: heavy, medium, light, and shields. All of the weapon options, martial and simples. You'll have languages and then tools. Again, these are all just references to when you're using them. You get to apply that proficiency bonus. These are just like a cheat sheet of actions here. These are features and traits that you should be up and aware of about your character, but this is a cheat sheet section of them, as well as this is a cheat sheet section of things that are basically rolling to hit, and effectively like your way to damage the world around you. Senses, very important to recognize that you have senses, like dark vision. But in the long run, these are things for your dungeon master to keep track of. I keep these things on my cheat sheet because I will describe to your senses without dice rolls. This is just how you passively interact in those ways. And there's technically a passive skill for every active skill. But those are the big three. In the long run, most passive stuff is passive perception. Page 2 starts out with a similar descriptor as the last one, but you're going to come into these all-important class features as well as racial features. These are very important to recognize that you have, because this is where the fine line of a DM helping a new player can go from helping you play to telling you how to play. And I will not tell you how to play. I want you to enjoy playing for yourself and making choices for yourself. You are affecting the world around you. Your choices have consequences. Suffice this to say, this is your equipment section here. This character is set up where weight is a little bit more realistic for kind of believability, so they're currently encumbered. But in the long run, you've got a breakdown of gold. You've got a breakdown of the items that they own. Not all of this is necessarily on you at any given point here. Page 3 starts to get into a little bit more detail at the top. This is where you're going to start to describe your character. These are some basic things that people can see from a distance. I like to also recognize like how their traveling clothes look, any weapons that might print on their silhouette. Basically things that kind of tell people a little bit more with how they see you about who you might be. But in the long run, these are just getting into a description of yourself. Some of these are notes like allies and organizations, backstory, and the actual additional notes. Those are all just spaces for you to write down and jot down notes. Flaws, bonds, ideals, and traits are things that you should role play about your character. I think this game is all about recognizing that each time you play, you are meeting yourself anew, and kind of recognize that as you create a character, you'll start to see these that feel right, and you should select those when you go into that area. But this is where I award inspiration. It's for people playing suboptimally, but very interesting characters. I think a background is very solidly 5 to 7 lines or sentences. You don't need a lot to kind of capture who your character is, but you should put a lot of effort into writing your background with your DM and the rest of the characters you're going to play with, so you are all a unified group by your background. It will feel like you were destined to be together, but that should be the point, is that you are answering the call to destiny. And then the final page is going to break down into your spells. Spells is a whole separate section of this game. If you are not looking to study and do more homework, you might want to avoid your first character being a spellcaster, because you basically have this section, and then spells is a whole extra. So it should be recognized that if you want a character who you don't need to know all of these spells, play somebody who doesn't have access to them right away. Enjoy their basic abilities that they have. It will tend to give you more features and more traits because you don't have those spells. When you do have spells, though, your spell save DC is important to know, but your spell attack bonus tells you that, because it is your spell attack bonus plus 8 is your spell save DC, and then each spell that you cast has a spell casting that it's saving against, and that's where you'll see Fairy Fire is against Dexterity, Bane is against Charisma, Sanctuary is against Wisdom. So the target number is 12. They save based on their Wisdom score. But again, spells is a whole completely other section of this world. If you want to play a spellcaster, it can be very beneficial to jump into a cleric or a druid, somebody who has access to all of their class's spells every single day. So you can never make the wrong choice where all of a sudden you just don't have the spells that you need and you don't have access to them. So it can be a lot to recognize that starting with the right kind of spellcaster can at least make it more friendly to your mistakes. But in the long run, if you're not prepared to know what your spells do, it's probably better to play a character who doesn't have them, because you should know all of your abilities, and your spells are just an extra complication to that. But I hope you enjoyed this. Don't hesitate to like, follow, and leave a comment if you've got any ideas for future videos for us. I'm going to try to do a whole big thing for new players to get into the game, to make things easier to digest and understand. And I hope this can be a great start to it. Just know there is a little bit of a difference to my view, as I will tend to be in night mode for everything. Most of these screens for a printout are going to be very white. I like the black background. We'll see you another time here. Again, Jared Marathustra from Dice Never Lie Gaming. I hope you have a wonderful time playing D&D today.